Great, thanks, Dave. Just a few coming soons I wanted to point out before we get started. Tomorrow morning, there's another webinar for retail best practices. And I know a lot of the retailers especially have been looking for some additional guidance on how to safely reopen. So this is part of the Recovery Lancaster effort that was championed by the Chamber and EDC. But this is focused on opening retail businesses and guidelines and best practices. We'll send the link to everyone, but if you're interested, obviously it's free. It's a lot of good information, and if you haven't already, please make sure you go to recoverylancaster.com to get information about potential grant dollars and free PPE. And you do have to register for this. So if you do want to participate tomorrow morning at 8:30. Please make sure that you register. And again, we'll send that link out to you. Also, we're working on another peer discussion. A lot of the merchants have requested information on how to get involved and show your support for the Black Lives Matter movement. So we are working with assets, and they're doing business for good efforts and the YWCA. To bring the merchants and restaurants together to talk about this in more detail and to point the merchant community in the direction for some great resources of how we can combine efforts to really show support for this movement. So that will probably occur in the next week or two. So keep an eye out for that. And then finally, because we are in such a dire need of celebration, Celebrate Lancaster is happening this year. So I'm going to turn it over to Annie Weeks, who could give an update.
Yay! Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
So yeah, we're keeping the same date. We again thought it was really important that we are bringing people together on the city's largest festival. So that's an annual event celebrating the 4th of July and our community at large. So we're keeping the main pieces, and that's food and culture, music, and fireworks. So due to social distancing regulations, I am not allowed to talk about the exact fireworks locations, but the quadrant of the city will be published later today. So everything can be found on our website, but what we're doing is we did the similar model for Music Friday, which is also this Friday. We're doing bands on flatbed trucks again. And the idea is to get trucks to all 4 quadrants. So we have specific routes that they'll be circling. The neighborhoods are reflective of, the bands are reflective of the neighborhood. So we worked with neighborhood groups to hire hyper-local talent. So that, the music is from 5 to 7. It'll be kind of like a roaming music festival. We'll also have food trucks, again, usually using social distancing regulations, but parked around our public parks. So there won't be like the congested festival type atmosphere that you are used to on Queen Street. We can't do pub areas, all those kind of things, can't do a VIP, but there, it's really important to us to keep some key pieces. So does anyone have any questions there? And look out for Music Friday info on our website as well.
Excellent.
Annie, you will be releasing sort of at some point, the general quadrants of where the fireworks will be and the general locations of where the food trucks will be.
Absolutely. And, as things are changing, shifting, we're still talking about that this morning. So we are, the final will happen today, and all our info will absolutely make sure LCA has it. It'll go on our website, doing a press release, all the social media around it. So people can celebrate with us.
And we will be happy to push that out as well.
Yay. Okay. Good deal. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Annie. So now it is my pleasure to introduce Craig Kazda, the Vice President of Quantum Dynamics. Craig is here to do a special presentation called Build It and They Will Return, Creating a Marketing Strategy to Reopen Your Business. This presentation illuminates the importance of understanding the new business landscape and adapt marketing strategy that reflects our new normal. So, Craig, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome, and I'll turn it over to you.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this morning. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be part of your gathering here. I definitely appreciate it. So good to see so many faces here. Give me a sec. I'm going to get my screen shared so that you guys can see my presentation. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes?
Technology at its finest, ladies and gentlemen. And everyone can still see it now that it's larger?
Yep.
Fantastic. I've been joking around that I've done every type of screen share and conference call service, and I'm going to make a bingo board for everyone else so they can check them off as they go through the different services. Zoom is so far my favorite. Teams is next. So anyway, thank you guys for being part of this morning. The most, as we think about the idea of creating a marketing strategy to reopen business, I think the biggest thing that I want to convey this morning is that every business, every group, every organization is going to feel different. It's going to have different dynamics in different scenarios. So whether you're, a retail shop, restaurant, professional service, or anything in between, I think what we try to do in this presentation this morning is kind of create a framework that you can kind of take a look at how you're approaching your marketing strategy as you reopen to find the best tools, strategies that are going to fit your specific needs. So again, my name is Craig Kazza. I'm the Vice President of Quantum Dynamics. We were founded in 2008 during the last big crisis. So we made it through that one. And we built that strategy during that time on the idea of us being nimble, having low overhead, having creative ideas, really thinking about a digital world and what that digital world looks like. So if you'd like to connect with me on Instagram, my Instagram is right there. And one of the things that I've always felt about marketing that I always try to convey to our clients and to the audiences I speak with is that marketing is a journey. It's not just a transaction. And I think a lot of us, especially in this digital era, think that if we put a lot of money into pay-per-click campaigns or social media ads, we're going to get a bunch of transactions, and that's going to lead to a lot of business. And I think we as local business leaders understand the fact that what we have to realize is that the marketing efforts we put together are all part of a longer journey. And all of those elements are connected to help get our clients and our customers to a final destination, which is hopefully going to be building a long-term relationship with us. And what we realize is that that journey takes time and energy to both put together and to realize. So let's look at this from the perspective of the customer for a second. When we think about marketing as a customer, they're trying to solve a problem in their life. So sometimes that problem is simple and easy, like where do I go eat tonight? Sometimes that problem is more complicated. Why is my car not sounding right? And a lot of times those journeys that those customers and clients are making starts with questions. So I like to think of this as if I was planning a vacation, which I know sounds like a novel idea right now, but I like to think about it as I'm planning a vacation. Typically, I start that process trying to figure out what I want to do. Where does my journey start? What type of trip would I want to have? Is it a beach trip? Is it a cross-country trip? I start asking those very basic questions of what I'm trying to find. And then I ask myself, where are the places I would like to stop along the way? What are the pinpoints that I need to achieve to make my trip complete? And then I string it all together and I connect all of the dots to create kind of a long-term route. So for me as a customer, that's kind of the journey I make to make a final decision, where I think about what my problem is. I think about all the different options, all the things I need to solve, all the different people who can help me. And then I figure out who's going to be that business that's going to help me get to that finish line, that's going to provide for my satisfaction, solve my problem, and do it meeting my unique set of criteria. So think about, as you think about the marketing as you reopen, you're going to want to think about that from your side of affairs, but you're also going to want to keep putting yourself in your customers and clients' shoes. And we're going to talk about that a little bit in more detail here in a few moments. And what we obviously, everyone knows the spiky little ball at this point. Everyone probably hates that image at this point. What we have to realize, and what kind of gives us pause in this moment, is that we all have to realize that COVID-19 has changed the journeys. We have to understand that the journeys for our businesses, the journeys for our clients and customers is now different at some level. And I know that, we talk about the idea of the quote unquote new normal. And I know that sometimes that's a reality we may not want to face. Sometimes we think that the term is maybe a little bit of a hyperbole, but realize that there are some dynamics to the buyer's journey and psychology that have been altered because of this process. And we kind of have to embrace at least some of those aspects as we think about how we communicate to people. And that's a lot of the details that we're going to go into today, because that's really how we have to think about reopening our business. As we reopen, some of us are reopened, some of us are reopening. We have to figure out how to communicate and meet the needs of our customers. We have to communicate that back to them in a way that's going to get them interested, make them feel safe, and bring them back into our doors. And this is kind of where the title came from. Is if anyone remembers the Kevin Costner movie Field of Dreams, you know, the whole line was build it and they will come. And the challenge is if you simply just open your doors and say we're open, business is not necessarily going to come back into your doors the way it was before. You have to realize that as we reopen, you're going to have to find those ways to encourage your customers and your clients to come back, and find the ways that it's going to serve them. It's going to meet on their terms. It's going to kind of bring them back into the fold. So that's what we're going to cover today. We're going to cover it in kind of two major aspects. The first side of the conversation is going to talk about platforms and audiences. So we're going to take a moment and actually have a real conversation about who our audiences are in this day and age, and maybe some ways that they might have changed and shifted that we may be very well aware of, or some ways that we may not be thinking about at this moment. Then we're going to talk about navigating various platforms from a digital marketing standpoint, as well as some traditional platform methods to try to create a strategy that's going to kind of best fit businesses' needs. And then we're going to talk about some choices and conversations that you'll need to have as a business owner about the options available and kind of putting together the right combination. Because the reality is that every business is going to look a little different, and they're going to go and gravitate towards different platforms in various different ways. So we're going to weave all those conversations together regarding audiences, platforms. And then we're going to talk about the other side of things, which I think is going to be the more important part, because those tools generically haven't changed. On the other side of the equation, we're going to talk about understanding your voice, understanding your message, and how to use those platforms to communicate your voice out to an audience. You know, understanding our tone, understanding frequency, and really trying to create those brand advocates that are going to go out and champion your businesses in the public square. So let's start with a conversation about platforms. And the reality is there is a numerous amount of platforms available. And what you can see on it is a graphic that I found several years ago. And those bubbles were based on the size of people and how they used different platforms. And that graphic is even outdated as of now, because so many other platforms have exploded since that we had that graphic last year. You know, and you think about, there is literally thousands of platforms that you can choose from to try to reach your audiences: Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok. And obviously, we are small organizations, all of us. We have limited man hours. And so we're going to have to figure out how to communicate our messages and get the best bang for our dollar and for our hour that we have available. And like I said before, COVID has changed a lot. But the psychology and the process of how we understand who we need to reach, that hasn't changed. The process of learning about our customers and about their needs is really fundamentally the same. It's the nuance of how we communicate to those people that might have changed since this has started. So step one that I think is the most important thing for any business today to do is to sit down and reevaluate who your clients and customers are. And the methodology that we always recommend doing that with is by creating personas for the types of clients and customers you have in your business. And for those of you who are not familiar with the concept and idea of a persona, the persona is a semi-fictitious story, basically, that you put together about who your customers and clients are, how they think, what their pain points and needs are. And you kind of string that together in a way that kind of allows you to help understand the tone, the voice, the challenges, and speak directly to your customers in a way that feels very authentic, real, or organic. So let's take a moment and look at the components of what makes a proper persona. This on the screen here are some of the considerations that you should keep in mind as you create your personas. The center part here, demographics, is typically what most businesses kind of stop at. They think about, okay, what's the age bracket of my client? What is the gender? What is the income and education, maybe job? And a lot of people stop there because they feel like, oh, I kind of have a basic idea of who my person is. But in reality, it's so much more when you're thinking about how to communicate to someone. So you have to sit down and think about, maybe the type of job they have, the lifestyle they have, what type of family dynamics do they have? And on the other side here, what are their values and goals? What are they getting excited about? What are they trying to achieve? What are their anxieties and worries? And I think as we look at everything that's going on right now, with COVID, as well as, with, the advocacy for rights for large groups of people, that, there's a lot of worries out there. A lot of people are anxious right now. And I think as businesses have to realize that those anxieties are real. And while they may not necessarily impact what we do as a business, we also need to make sure that our messaging doesn't come off tone deaf in a dynamic that feels very different, in a social media world that feels very different. We have to understand that those dynamics are now part of some people's fabrics. And we need to understand that between the combination of goals and worries and aspirations, there's going to be things that influence them one way or the other. And again, I have to emphasize, these personas are going to look different for every business. So there is no magic bullet solution saying this is the persona that everyone should go market towards, because that isn't a realistic solution. I know you as business owners all understand the fact that you and the shop next to you look and feel very different. Continuing on, we spent a lot of time talking about pain points. Pain points, the classic example that I always give is the time that when my washer and dryer broke. And so my dryer broke, and while it made heat, it wasn't spinning. So I understood the pain point for me was my dryer wasn't working. And now I had to try to find a way to fix that. That was my pain point. I tried to fix it. And the challenge was I didn't want to spend a lot of money doing it. So buying a new dryer was out of the question. So realize that your people will have very specific pain points, and you need to figure out how your business is positioned to fit those challenges. Obviously, cost, value, fear are all kind of objections that are going to cause a person to not want to choose your business. Is your service too expensive? Do they not see the value in it? Do they have a fear of it not working? It's always important to stop and ask yourself why someone hasn't chosen your service, and realize that you have to construct a narrative in your persona as well as your marketing that's going to take a look at those challenges that people are saying, no, I don't think it's the right solution, and combat those head on. You have to kind of counteract what someone would say. So if someone thinks if your product is too expensive, then you have to go and explain the value of it. Why it's expensive because of this, because it's high quality, it's handmade. Think about those type of words. It's farm to table if you're a restaurant. Think about those ways that you can kind of enhance the value to counteract people's concern about cost. And then kind of the last component is, that the persona wants to understand what you can do for them. And you have to find that kind of clear way to communicate that back to them. This is the benefit. This is what I'm going to give back to you. So the reality is we took a couple minutes to walk through this kind of guided persona that you can now kind of think about creating on your own. And maybe you're already thinking about how your clients and customers kind of fit into bits and pieces of this. This process never changed. The answer to those questions changed, but those questions never changed. And I think the most important thing is we think about step one, about how we reopen, how we recommunicate to people as we are opening up, is to realize that we need to sit down and kind of think, the customer I had in February of 2020 and the customer I have in June of 2020 are going to look and feel different. Walk through this. Take a look at the assumptions you've made in the past and double check to make sure they are still accurate as you move forward. Hopefully that all makes sense. So once you have completed the personas, and you might have a couple of them, then it's time to start thinking about the next big thing, which is about choosing platforms that you think are going to be the best places for you to communicate your message out to the world. And today we're going to talk about 3 big ones, but there are multiple ones out there. So the 3 platforms that we're looking at today are email marketing, social media, and then we're actually going to take a moment and look at mail and traditional print medias, because I think they have a real part of the equation as well. And I chose these platforms at some level because they're relatively inexpensive to get into, and in many cases either free or low cost, because these are platforms that are easy for you to use on as a business owner. You can do them in the evening. You can have a part of your staff running them. Very easy to manage and control and manipulate. And because they have the greatest impact as messages and needs change pretty dynamically. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges a lot of businesses faced going through COVID-19 was how rapidly the world was changing around us and how we needed to really take time and get accurate messaging out as quickly and rapidly as possible. And so these are the platforms that kind of best position businesses to kind of get that message out quickly as possible. So let's go ahead and get started with this side of things. Email marketing. I know a lot of people despise having a gazillion emails in their email box, and that's a real concern. And I know that Kathleen and I were joking about that a little bit yesterday about the clutter that is the email box. Reality is, scientifically, email marketing is still a highly effective form of marketing for businesses. You know, emails that are sent on a regular basis typically have a 20 to 30% open rate. And if you are a small business or if you are a nonprofit, those rates actually could be even higher depending on your fan base and advocacy. So realize that you're getting a lot of people are reading those messages, even though you think they're clutter. If you really like something, you're going to open it up. And the open rate or the click rates are better than a lot of times social media click rates are. So realize email marketing still has a real place in the marketing world. And, you know, the best example was I needed paint the other day, and I ended up, you know, going to Michael's to get some craft paint. And I knew that Michael's had an email in my email box because they send me 3 emails a day. And so I was able to find that coupon. I went to Michael's because I knew I could get that little bit of a discount. So clearly email marketing was still effective for that organization. So let's look at some of the details about email marketing to think about. The purpose. One of the major purposes that I like email marketing, and I always kind of advocate with clients, is because it gives you the ability to kind of provide regular promotions. Hi. It gives you the ability to provide regular promotions and offers to your clients and customers. So it's those people who have already signed up. They already know who you are. You can communicate to them on a regular basis. It's also good if you are a nonprofit organization or your professional services. This is where you get to do a lot of thought sharing and kind of maintain that top of mind awareness. But I really like this for promotions. And we'll talk about what to promote a little bit later in our conversation together. Your audience, the reality is for email marketing, your audience is going to be people who already know about you. So this is already your loyal fan base. So if you're not collecting emails as a business now, I would highly recommend doing that. And I think in this day and age, I think we can be very direct about why we want to have someone's email address. And I think especially as small businesses, the world is going to understand that for all of us to make it through this together, we're going to all have to play ball with each other a little bit. We're going to have to be okay with sharing our email address because I know you're going to send me some marketing information, but I want to support you. So I'm going to do my part to support you, and I'm going to sign up for your email list. But this is going to come from people who have already been your customers. I do not recommend going out and buying email lists. They are not going to be effective. In many cases, those emails were collected illegally. So do not go out and buy lists. Those are scams. Collect your own list. Gather them. It takes time. But once you have a good, solid email list, you will realize its effectiveness. And I think for those of you who have done email marketing and do it dedicatedly, you realize how valid that is. Your goal with email marketing is kind of twofold. It's going to be to maintain that top of mind awareness with your customers and clients. And it's going to be providing short-term bursts into the door. So as you reopen, use email marketing to help drum up the fact that you are reopening. And I know it's not going to be the way that ribbon cuttings used to be in the past, where you'd have champagne and cake, but it's exciting that we get to open and we get to actually ring the cash registers and bring customers in our door. So understand that you have to use these tools to let them know that this is exciting, that we get to be open again, and we want to serve you, the community, our customers, clients, fans, advocates, so on and so forth. From a frequency standpoint, I would recommend weekly. Weekly seems to be a good local pace for email. What's great about weekly emails is that you can make them all in advance inside of systems. And so you can build a couple of them out ahead of time. You can schedule them to deploy. They'll send out seamlessly with just a click of a button. It's a great way to kind of work ahead. Once you have an email campaign set up, I've always found it takes, honestly, 15 to 20 minutes to put an email together. From a tool standpoint, if you're looking for my favorite email tool, it's MailChimp. MailChimp through and through. I know a lot of you are probably already familiar with MailChimp. It is a great, easy to use, inexpensive tool to start building a list, communicating to clients and customers, and start trying to develop that conversation as your doors open. There are other tools out there. Constant Contact is the one that I think comes up the second most in my world. It's a bit more of an expensive tool. It's not as user intuitive. It's not one that I typically recommend to clients. And if you're looking for more sophisticated tools, that's when you might be starting to look at tools like ListTrack, which is obviously a local firm, because those are kind of more highly sophisticated tool sets. So email marketing is something that I think a lot of marketers have kind of put into the trash heap that is honestly overlooked in this day and age. So I would really look at bringing that email marketing strategy back into a reopening plan for your business. The second one is pretty obvious: social media. Social media is a way to generate a buzz as quickly as possible, reach new audiences, get people to share content. It's also the most challenging. Challenging for two fronts. Social media has so much diversity in terms of the number of platforms that building and finding audiences can be tricky and challenging. The second part is because social media really wants to get paid for the thing it does. So as a business owner, a lot of what happens in social media gets suppressed a little bit compared to kind of organic people events or sponsored ads. So just realize as a business, trying to generate organic social media can be very, very tricky unless you're getting really people to not only like you, but also follow your posts and get them to appear on the wall. So as you think about social media strategies, you're going to want to think about how we're going to drum up that social media and then remind people not just to like you, but then also make sure they follow you so that your posts constantly appear on their wall. Otherwise, you're going to kind of get lost. I think at this point, about 5% of your Facebook wall, for example, is organic business posts. So if you think about that, you're going to see 5 businesses for 100 Facebook posts. And I can tell you that I do not, as single sitting, scroll through 100 Facebook posts. So just realize there's some challenges with social media, but it can be a very effective tool in 2 very specific ways. Facebook and social media can be great for telling a story. They can be great for building a brand, really helping identify and embrace your relationship with the community. And I think one of the things that we have to remind ourselves as we go through all of the turmoil that we're experiencing right now is that we as consumers, we as businesses, we as nonprofit organizations, as everything that falls in between those gaps, we are all the fibers and the fabrics of what build up our community. And we need to kind of support and embrace each other as we go through. So realize social media is a great way to spread that message. The other purpose, which I didn't necessarily state on the slide here, is that it is great to get quick hit information out. Schedule changes, reopenings, menu specials, stuff like that. Things that people will actually go look on your social media to say, hey, is this business open right now, or are they still closed? So make sure that if you have not updated your social media in regards to the idea of, I am open, these are my hours, I am closed until we go to green, make sure you update your social media, because I will tell you that I've looked at multiple businesses in their social media page to make sure that they were open. And when I could not find if they are opened or not, I ultimately went to a different business because I didn't want to drive all the way out to somewhere, realize they were closed, have to drive back. So please make sure you're updating that kind of basic information on social media right now, because people are looking there for a source of, hours and menus and stuff like that. So that's kind of the main purposes for social media. When you think about audiences, this is where we start kind of getting a blended audience. On one side, you're going to have the audience of social media is going to be the people who liked you in the past. But using social media now can also be a way to kind of reach out to new clients and new customers that may not know about you before. And there's kind of going to be two strategies on how we can expand our social media audiences to people who are not familiar with us. Side one is going to be that organic approach. We're going to talk about this a little bit at the end about building advocates. But social media is the best platform to go and tell your advocates to share your business with their friends. Back at the beginning of the year, that probably felt a little uncomfortable to make that ask of your clients and customers. Now, because I think everyone understands the urgency and the need and the passion that local businesses have in the fabric of the community, we can be more direct. We can be more honest about those asks and say, help us grow our business because we need your support now more than ever. You can ask those organic appeals, get people to share your business, your posts out in their networks in the community, and they will connect with new people. I will tell you that throughout the stay-at-home order, we were finding as many local shops and restaurants to make orders from other people's posts that I never heard of before. It was kind of a game for us in our household to find somewhere new that we hadn't, been purchased from before, because we wanted to try to spread the love. And I think you can tell people this is the time to spread the love more than ever before. The other half of that audience side of things is you can pay to have your posts boosted, or you can create audiences in social media that will expand your reach to people who you who are not familiar with your brand. So there's a large world to talk about in terms of the paid world of social media. The basic one that I kind of want to walk through quickly this morning is that idea of creating a lookalike audience. So what you can do in social media is add a social media pixel, a Facebook pixel, onto your website. That pixel will connect people who visit your site with their Facebook accounts, kind of get a basic sense of the demographic and psychographic data of those users who already like you. And then when you pay to create ads in Facebook, you can then create a lookalike audience that looks like people who visit your website, takes all those demographics, psychographics, and geography, and creates a lookalike audience that matches those characteristics that you can reach out to. So creating those lookalike audiences is kind of one of the best ways to get an audience that you know is going to be best suited to be a fan of your business. So just a consideration if you're willing to put some money into building an audience. So just think about that as you move forward, because that's important right now. We obviously got to get our fans back, but we've got to grow business too. And obviously, like I said before, the main goal here is it's building advocacy. It's about making stories. It's about making those kind of emotional appeals. So, as you think about how we use this platform, we want to use it in a very authentic, emotional, real way. So think about those kind of ways you can communicate that strategy as we go through. Frequency, this is the challenge of social media, is that you have to do it regularly and often. Because like I described before, with the fact that there are so few business posts organically appearing on people's walls, you do have to have a regiment. So multiple times a day is ideal, particularly for Facebook. Instagram, you don't need as much content, 1 to 2 Instagram post a day would be great if you could pull that off. Instagram live videos and whatnot are also great because those are getting pushed into people's notification feeds. One of those, a week or so would be great, whether it's talking to customers, showing product, telling your story, whatever you can do there is really helpful. And that's one of the things I think about with social media now is that it's not only text or pictures, it is that video component. It is the live component, where you can, show who you are, and whether that is an advocate for the community or the various, races and cultures that make up our community. Or it's, basically, you celebrating your employees or celebrating the local heroes. You find those ways to kind of craft and tell those stories in social media. Traditional media. This is one that I think a lot of digital marketers actually leave off the table. And the reality is print is not dead. And I'm glad that Mimi is on here with us because I think she can probably actually take the slide away from me and run with it herself. But the reality is that print is not dead. And print still has a very real place in the marketing world, especially as it relates to getting words out. The only challenge there is obviously a little bit more expense to it. You have to have a little bit more planning to it. But, as you're talking about making a big splash as you reopen the doors, print can be a good way to help do that. Whether that is sending some type of, basic postcard to your customers through the mail saying, hey, we're open. We want to open our doors to you. Maybe make a little bit of a discount to get them, back in. Find those ways to use the print to celebrate it. Maybe it's even just putting a big banner or flag outside of your door, letting everyone know that you're open, or maybe letting everyone know that it's safe to be open. Obviously, the hope is that with using more of a traditional approach, we're trying to make a big splash to get people who wouldn't recognize us normally we're trying to catch their eye. So that's how we're going to use traditionals to try to open those doors, get people excited that we're opening back up again. And again, there's so many, you could talk about postcards, you could talk about signs, you could talk about flags, you could talk about things on the ground, putting things on the sidewalk potentially, although make sure you meet all of your city compliances and whatnot with all those things. But make sure, there's ways that we can get creative from a design standpoint, from an application standpoint, to make these traditional applications work. Because the goal really is to promote in the community and reach a new audience. Obviously, print doesn't have the necessary frequency. Find the best fit that works for you, regardless of the platform you choose. Again, because money is an object, you want to make smart choices there. And here's the thing. Here's the biggest thing. And obviously, we are Quantum Dynamics. We are a website design development company first and foremost. And so this is my cheap plug, is that everything you do, whether it be email, social media, print, or any of those other media applications that maybe I didn't talk about today, and there's clearly a lot of them, make sure they all hub back to your website. Make sure they all connect back to the central hub of your business, which is your website, which right now, even if your brick and mortar is not open, your website is open. And there's a lot of things your website can be doing for your business to start to continue generating business, even if your doors aren't necessarily open. Restaurants are the ones that took the bull by the horn the fastest because a restaurant is already kind of pre-built for the idea of takeout orders and curbside pickups and whatnot. But other businesses can do a lot of that too. And I think the challenge is most of you probably have a website. Most of you probably don't want to pay a developer to make a lot of huge changes to that website to make it work in the current environment. There are a lot of very easy plugins that you may be able to add to your website, or creative uses on creating new contact forms to kind of continually grow and generate business, even if you don't have the time or energy or the money to kind of revamp your website. Even down to the point of changing the messaging on your website to reach to your new customers. Make sure your website is the hub of that information. And on the other side of that, please make sure your website is updated with correct information. Whether that be your hours of operation, how you're approaching safety. There's a lot of websites out there right now that never talked about COVID, never updated their information about it. So please make sure take 15 minutes today and just double check your website is updated appropriately. So those are the basic platforms that to consider. The other half of this conversation is about your voice. Because reality, now more than ever, we need to understand how to speak and engage with our customers and clients. The challenge is, this is what has changed the most. Platforms haven't changed, personas haven't changed. It's our voice that has changed. And so as we look about how we're going to reopen, it is time to take a step back and make sure that we are redefining what the voice of our business is. Our world looks very different right now. And you have to be very understanding of that fact. So be honest. Lean into the fact that the world has changed. The business looks different now than it did 4 months ago. That your business, possibly being closed for an extended period of time, needs the support and love of the community around them to keep the doors open, to keep people employed. Be honest about that, and be honest about how proud you are to be in a community that is as vibrant, as diverse as ours is. Find a warm tone. Make sure that you're looking at your website messaging and your marketing messaging and your social media messaging a lot. If you today are using the same messages that you used in February of 2020, the reality is that there's a highly likelihood that your business is going to come off tone deaf, because you're just not understanding and appreciating the dynamics of the world that it is today. Find that tone that embraces the world around us, the struggles and tensions that we all feel, and says, we're part of the community, you're part of the community, let's do this together. And I think you've seen a lot of local marketers, and I think you've seen a lot of national marketers do a great job of that. One of the actual ad campaigns I actually enjoyed the most during all this was YouTube's kind of stay-at-home approach, where they're really kind of celebrating like that, we're all in this together mentality. And obviously that's all changing now that we are reopening things up, which brings us kind of that understanding of a new value proposition. The challenge is that some of us as business owners have to realize that we may be bringing a new value proposition to our customers and clients that we didn't 4 months ago. Your actual service lines, products, features may actually have changed too. So realize that value proposition you had before may not be the same value proposition that someone cares about today. If you are again, I'm going to kind of, think about a car company. Back in, February, people may want it, flashy, expensive, fast. Today, you notice a lot of car companies are talking about, hey, we're allowing you to defer payments because we can be flexible with you. We're providing, highly dependable vehicles, so same kind of basic product line, but they're focusing on different parts of their business. You may want to think about the different parts of your business that you can lean into as part of your new value proposition. If you are a professional service, let's take an accounting firm, for example, you can talk about how knowledgeable team is going to help you weather the storm. It's going to help you, make you feel safe. Whereas before, maybe the accounting firm would be like, we're going to make you lots of money. So again, your service necessarily didn't change, but how you're approaching it and how you're presenting it and how you're redefining that value proposition probably did change as we look at the quote unquote new normal. And the last part is to understand how all this fits together is by understanding your place in the community and trying to celebrate that place in the community so that everyone understands that we are in this together. And if we are not supporting our business community, then Lancashire doesn't look as vibrant as it used to. So adopt a lot of these things into your voice and make sure you're communicating them on a regular basis, which brings us to the next point. Communicate often. There are some businesses out there that when this happened and we had to close the doors, they went 100% dark and stopped talking and stopped communicating. And the last thing they did from a marketing standpoint was back on probably like March 12th, 2020. And that's a problem because of a couple things. First off, your top of mind awareness as a business has now deteriorated. After 4 months of not saying anything, it's going to be harder to get back into people's minds. And more importantly, it's going to get hard to get back on the social media walls if you fell dormant for so long. Like, you technically will not get as populated as before if you went dark for so long. So communicating and communicating often, communicating regularly, even if your doors aren't open, or if some reason things change again and we have to go back to some of the older protocols, make sure you're continually communicating throughout all of this. The best way to do this is to create yourself a schedule. Create a schedule of when you're going to post, how you're going to post, what times a day, and try to live by that schedule. And I know it's tricky. We all wear multiple hats as business owners. I feel it too. You know, all best intentions sometimes fall apart when reality sets in. But try to create a schedule and try to stick with it. The best way I can recommend to kind of help create that schedule is to use a lot of these scheduling functionalities that exist in a lot of these platforms. Email marketing platforms have the ability to schedule out. Social media platforms have the ability to schedule out. Use those scheduling functionalities to help make your life a little easier. Sit down and write a week's worth of posts at the same time. And you know what? If something cool happens during the middle of the week, go ahead and post it. That's great. Get an extra post out there for something cool that happened in your business or a story you want to tell. But at least get the baseline of that content out early, get it scheduled, so then you don't have to worry about it so much. And, you know, I get it. We all wear hats. Gear shifting is hard, which is why doing it in one clump is how I've always found it to be most effective. Promote and celebrate everything. Everything at this day and age is a celebration. Opening a door is a celebration. Having a sale is a celebration. Going outside and taking a walk is a celebration. Riding a bike is a celebration. Celebrate everything you do. Because the reality is that promotions before were all about how much discount we could give people. And discounts are a good thing, you know, especially if you open doors to give people a little bit of enticement to come back in. But everything we do in this day and age is a celebration. Getting employees back in our shops is a celebration. Don't be afraid to promote it. Don't be afraid to celebrate the small victories, because I think a lot of people are going to appreciate that. And with that, you know, all of this can sound very doom and gloom. Don't be afraid to have a little humor, put a little chip on the shoulder, you know, you maybe place your tongue a little fully in cheek. That's okay. Be appropriate, be sensitively, you know, culturally appropriate, sensitive, time appropriate. But, you know, humor is kind of the best cure to a lot of things right now. So find that place where you can kind of live and all that, but celebrate everything you do. Here's the other thing about communication. Respect people's safety needs. Some people do not feel as safe going outside or going to businesses as other people do. I'm probably a little more cavalier than maybe some other people would be, which is fine. I respect, my chosen risk. Realize that a lot of people are going to have safety concerns, you know, whether that be restaurants. Yes, a lot of you know, my brother Eric also owns the virtual reality lounge, you know, and that's a place that is going to be put a thing on your face for an hour and, you know, hope that nothing happens. And a lot of the strategy he's going to take is about explaining on a regular basis through his marketing platforms how he's going to approach safety protocols. You know, what are the safety steps he's going to do to ensure the safety of his staff and his customers? You know, and that's going to be down to the concept of showing the pictures of the sanitation and the Lysol wipes. You know, explaining how often the cleaning is going to be, explaining the chemical composition of the cleaning agents. Do whatever you can. You know, don't be afraid to show pictures of your staff cleaning things, you know, because that's going to reassure people that this is a safe environment. On the other side of the coin, don't be afraid to make those displays physically visible when they see it. I think it's Marriott that's actually having a partnership now with Lysol. If there's local partnerships you can have, that's great. Find those partnerships and make sure you're leaning into safety and cleanliness. Create advocates. You already have advocates. You already have people who know and love your business. Make sure that you energize that base. Direct your fans to help the business. Get them to support that business now through sharing. Make sure you encourage the sharing of your posts, the sharing of your business, the sharing of specials. Get your fans to share your content on their networks. If you can get them to organically do that, if you can get them to buy into that concept that us doing this together makes us better, you're going to find those new audiences we talked about earlier. On the other side of the coin, find local business partners that you kind of are in the same sphere with, that you can kind of align with, that you have synergy with. Do some co-marketing together, do some co-branding. Especially obviously the 300 block of Queen is a great example of that. Businesses who have aligned together for your common good. Find those businesses in your space that you can tag along with. Maybe it's the folks at Thistle who are making hand sanitizer. Find those ways you can kind of co-mark and co-brand with each other. And on the other side of the coin, if you have businesses that have supported you, make sure you're supporting them in the process. So I know we're at the back end of our time. I want to bring it back to the field of dreams. The reality is that right now today, your next step is that you can build it and your customers will come. They will come out of that cornfield and they will be excited to be supporting you. So what are the things you can do today? First off, step one, take a look at that audience. Review your customers and clients. Did their needs change? How can your business help with the changes in your customers? And then understand the platforms they live in and what are the best ways to communicate them and what are the best ways to speak to them. What are the right words to use? What are the right messages? Step two, promote. Find your new voice and message. Promote everything you do. Share your safety protocols and measures. Make people feel comfortable coming back into your space and activate your advocates. Get them to go out and do the work for you a little bit. Remember, many hands make light work. Step three, test. The best thing about digital marketing is that if something doesn't work, you can try something vastly different. So go take a look at what you're doing. Is it being effective? If it's not, make changes. If it is effective, do more of it. Test and review your stats on a regular basis. Get into a pace where you're constantly looking at how your marketing is performing, whether it's email, whether it's social, whether it's your website, diving into Google Analytics. Create that cycle of testing so you can constantly be aware of how you're performing. And I'll close on this. Now, this is a quote from Winston Churchill. Now, this is not the end, and it's not even the beginning of the end, but perhaps it's the end of the beginning. And that's the reality, is that even if, COVID subsides, the economic impacts of this are going to last just a while. And the reality is that we have to understand that racing back to way things were back in February isn't as much a reality. So we as marketers are going to have to embrace the change. We have to embrace that this is a stage in the journey, and we are going to have to find those ways to adapt our marketing, our communications, and our messages to make sure we are connecting and engaging with those customers and clients that we value the most. So with that, thank you. I really appreciate everyone's time today. I do have a little bit, we have some time, I believe, for questions. So I guess I will hand it back to the team to help with the question portion of our lives.
Greg, thank you so much. This was a fantastic presentation.
Thank you.
Does anyone have questions for Greg?
I had one. You did, Craig did touch on it, and it was, but I wanted you to speak just briefly on the comparing the cost of Facebook ads versus the pricing of more conventional ads, and sort of the bang for the buck that you get.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So when I look at the world of paid advertising, I see it in kind of three components. Social media ads kind of live in one quadrant. Search ads live in a second quadrant, and then kind of traditional print ads live in a third quadrant. So the question is you're thinking about building a paid ad strategy. You kind of have to sit down and think about what the overall goals would be. So if your goal is to create a very targeted, narrow campaign, I would go towards social media because you can create very specific targeting, reach very specific audiences. The ad spend is cheaper than what you may find in the other two platforms, pay-per-click search and traditional. So you can get to be more targeted at a lower price point traditionally, especially if you're making utilization of that pixel and those lookalike audiences like we talked about earlier. So you can find those real targeted niche people. If you're looking for kind of that just broader, I've got some marketing dollars, I want to make, a big splash just kind of in the geographic area, that's when you can kind of look at those kind of traditional ad spaces, whether that be kind of like newspaper, billboard, or whatnot. I want every car driving down, Fruitfield Pike to see me. That's where those ads work well. And then kind of that middle lane is that pay-per-click search ad. And if you're going to buy that type of ad strategy, realize those can get a little bit more expensive than social media. And realize that those are going to be very targeted towards people who have a very specific problem or question. So if you're making a pay-per-click campaign strategy, I would think about trying to answer very specifically targeted questions that someone may be having that your business might be able to solve. So that's how I would generically think about the comparison between multiple platforms. If you're looking for kind of targeted, inexpensive social media, broad, traditional, problem-oriented, I would shoot the gap and go with social media or with search. Great question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Craig? All right. Well, Craig, thank you again. This was
Thank you.
very enlightening. Thank you for that. Kathleen, would you like to do a brief member intra-marketing committee report?
I will reiterate that Lancaster City Indie Retail Week is coming up. Any retailers here, and that would include services, so Tread House. We would love to promote you as part of Lancaster City Indie Retail Week. Of course, Zanzibar, Curio, certainly Moved Studio, Lancaster Arts Hotel, absolutely. If you send an email to info@teamlanc.org, if you don't already have the link to register, we'll be happy to send that to you directly. We will be sending out another email for participating. Also, there are some recent posts on Lancaster City Alliance social media that we encourage you to share. One would be the Demuse Museum is having an In This Moment art show where artists of every ethnicity are encouraged to enter at no cost, and their work will be exhibited with 50% of the proceeds benefiting Christus Attucks Community Center. 40% of the proceeds will go directly to the artist, and 10% of the proceeds will go to put on the show. And if you can share that on your social media, that would be very much appreciated. And a reminder that Friday is Juneteenth, a very important holiday in the Black community, more important than ever this year. There will be a post celebrating it on Lancaster City Alliance social media at 6 a.m. on Friday. We would appreciate your standing with us with a share on your social media. Thank you so much.
Great. Thanks, Kathleen. And just one more reminder for the retailers out there to please register for the Retail Best Practices webinar with the Chamber through Recovery Lancaster. In the chat room is a link to register. So please do so. And again, one more reminder, if you want to apply for the grant funding through Recovery Lancaster, the window closes on Friday. So go to recoverylancaster.com for more information on how to do it.
We'll actually put a link for Indie Retail Week in the minutes. That will make it even easier.
Great. All right, everyone. Well, if there's nothing else, we will see you maybe tomorrow, maybe next week, maybe today. Who knows? Anyway, have a good day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. It's everyone's favorite part. Everyone's just waving by.